Hey, checking in with He Knew He Was Right by Anthony Trollope. This is chapters 26 to 35. Polishing off my chapters, so I will be all the way up to 40 before the end of the week, which should be pretty easy since I've been motoring through. So yes, don't know how I'm feeling about the novel at this point. We start off kind of starting with 26 and going on. There are two kind of confusions here. There's confusions between Standish, and with that and Nora Morley, where he gets the news from his sister of like, look, we shouldn't be in this house. It's not. We've been raised up too much. We've been put into this really nice house so we can house Emily and Nora, but it's really not where I should be, and we're getting in the middle of this big fight. So that really, Emily shouldn't Emily shouldn't stay here for that long. We've had this whole visit with the general, and it's like it's too much. It's too much for mom, and all that stuff. So it needs to be kind of a thing. Lewis Llewellyn Lewis Trevane this, and Lewis Trevane writes one of those wonderful Trollope letters, which the character thinks he's being perfectly reasonable in a letter. This one to his wife Emily, where he basically says that she's shamed his name, and that he doesn't really give much of a chance of holding out for hope. It's basically I'm gonna support you in such and such a way, and that as long as you don't bring any more shame, you can have our son for like 9 months of the year, and I'll have him for the other 3. It's like it's one of these really tone deaf things, and he won't take advice from anyone. Indeed, he shows the letter to Hugh. I can't remember if he sent. I think he shows it to the lady dowager, whose name's completely gone out of my head, and they're both like, do not send this letter. Just go to her, say bygones are bygones, and go off to Naples, go off somewhere for a year, and just people will forget about it. And if they don't, who cares? Because what does it matter what other people think? It's like, just let bygones be bygones. She has not done anything that horrible. Yes, she's been very bullheaded and but just let it go. Let it go. You're being crazy about this. This is not the way to do things. But he won't listen. And she is, on the other hand, is very, I'm going to have things all my own way. I have done nothing wrong. And she won't bend either. It's like one of these things where if one of the party was just a little less inflexible, things would be fine. But because they are both rigid as rigid could be, they're not going to get back together again. But he also mentions in the letter, and because of how horrible you've been comporting yourself, they want you out of the house. And so it kind of drives a wedge in between Emily and Nora, and the Standish family, and hard feelings against Hugh for apparently maybe communicating something like this, and then Priscilla, the older daughter of the Standish, is saying like, no, look, this has just been a misunderstanding, and he's written it in the most kind of harsh, damaging way, but please don't take it that way. Emily, gets immediately up on our high horse again and is like, no, we're not going to stay here. And so they do end up being at the outhouse house. This preacher's house, who is a uncle who is not a rich man, is a fairly poor man who, despite this, refuses to take any money for the care and tending of Nora and Emily, saying like, no, they'll just be our guests. I'm not going to take money. I'm not like, we're not taking boarders. This will just be that. somewhat regrets that because, that does make things difficult that way. Shira! Psst, psst, psst. Shira! What's up? Yes. Hi, Shira. Yes, Shira's going to join me beside versus barking at me. And so, yeah, so they do come to the house. He sends them a bunch of checks, and he fucks off. He actually leaves the country after having come for a visit to see the boy, their child that they have together. Just in case we forget, they do have a child together, and the child hasn't seen him for like over 6 months or something, and it's like it just takes a couple of weeks, and he has no idea who this is, and he cries, and it's like, look, they've taught him to hate me. It's like, no, they haven't. It's just natural. It's like he just a little startled by you, but it really shakes him, and he fucks off. He leaves the country, and that sort of is where we're left with them, with Emily lodged the outhouse place, where they are very kind of they're used to tending and kind of ministering to fallen poor people, but not to fallen what they consider kind of rich ladies, and they don't really know how to do that, and I don't see that going well, especially with Emily, who does not consider herself a fallen lady. So she's probably going to quarrel with them too, because she's going to quarrel with everybody. And at the same time, Trollope then kind of does split off on this stuff of, we get the whole stuff with Dorothy, who is staying with Mrs. Standish. This is the rich widow, and her efforts to kind of get her married to a couple of people and a couple of dudes. And I have trouble kind of keeping track of, and to be honest, caring about this. Most of the very last scene is a couple of mean girls forcing a dude into the corner to say, no, I'm not gonna marry her, even though that's the offer that's come in, because Mrs. Standish, the widow, has said, hey, I'll give you £2,000 if you'll marry her, and that's a good tidy hunk of money. That would be bring in like 100 a year or something like that. So. But he kind of they force him, because they use all their mean girl stuff of like, oh, well, she's so low, and she hasn't really, anything in the world. She's been shut up in a cottage. Oh, poor dear, she can't help being a miserable little provincial nothing. Just like the total like mean girls of Tina Fey must be taking notes with stuff like this, or really it's just kind of the continual universal thing of how people manipulate stuff in social settings to bring each other down. But yeah, I really have a hard time. Like, there's the stuff with Nora and Hugh, which, Hugh is very much still wants to be with her. They don't have the money, but he's trying to kind of figure out a way. I don't know. I'm having trouble. It's like the A plot with Emily and Lewis. It's like, I don't really like them very much. And the B plot, it's like, okay, yeah, whatever. But they're splitting it off between Nora and Dorothy Dolly. And I don't really, I'm wavering in how much I care about for this. That said, Trollope is always good at kind of digging the claws in at some point and trying to make, get me going again. So that is, I'm open to the possibility, and it definitely does read really well. I zip through this. I'm eager to listen to the next section at all times. So 5 more chapters to get me to to 40. So maybe I will perk up again, but we'll see. I should actually go online and see if Steve Donahue has actually talked about the first 20 chapters, talked about this novel in general, and if he has had any advice for people going forward on this. Shira has decided to start kissing, wants to have a make-out session now, so I think I will go. But that's all I have for the moment. More videos later.